Our next interview is with Peter Stern of Boston, Massachusetts, one of the leading dealers in modern literature. But before that, he was a dealer in detective fiction and probably still is. Peter, would you just tell us a little bit about your background, education, family, how you got started in the book business, etc.?
Well, I went to school in Boston, and my father had an office downtown, so I would often go to visit him, have lunch, and I'd go see the bookstores. And while I was in school, Ernie Starr, who ran the Starr Book Company on Kingston Street, needed help packing books, and I ended up helping him pack books, and I ended up staying, and then I ended up leaving him and going on my own. So I didn't intend to do it.
What was your intention?
I have no idea.
You were just...
My intention was to stay out of the Army.
Well, that's certainly a good intention.
And I succeeded.
You succeeded. When did you start on your own? Approximately.
1975, I think.
Did you start in a mail order, or did you open a shop?
A mail order.
And I know that you have a shop. When did you open that, and you can...
Well, we first opened a shop in '88, I think, in the Back Bay, and then we moved to the current location 7 years ago, and then I'll be moving back to an office in another year.
You're going to close the shop?
Oh, yeah.
So you're going to follow the same trend that's been going on for the last 5 years?
My lease is coming to an end, so if I found another shop, would I think of it? Yes, but if I could have stayed here under good circumstances, maybe I would do it. But I don't object to having a shop, but I'm not going to go to great lengths to maintain one.
To maintain it. What attracted you mainly about the book business? Was it the fact that you were immersed in it and you just decided to do it?
I just like books, and I was buying books. I never thought about it as a business. Never. But it always attracted me, I suppose, in some way.
When you first started in the trade, were there people who were your sort of mentors or people you looked up to for guidance or would ask questions of?
Well, Starr Book Company was a funny place. It was an old-style used book dealer. But I owe a lot to Ernie Starr, and I learned a lot from him, but I really started learning from the people who came in.
The collectors?
The collectors and the dealers. They really, some of the dealers, they came in, they just showed you there was a little more, within those four, like any place like that, within those four walls, the experience was limited to what came through there.
Yeah.
And the people who came in showed me there was something, different.
How long did you work for Ernie?
I think it was about 2 years. So I was probably on my own actually in '74. But
how old were you at the time?
24.
So you were relatively young when you started in the trade.
Yeah.
The book business has changed dramatically since you and I started in the trade. Was it an easy transition or a difficult transition for you to become an internet bookseller or have a presence?
I still don't do all that much on the internet.
You still don't? Do you have a website?
Not really, no. I just list my books on ABE, and I should do more. I recognize it. It's just, I like working with the books. I don't like working with the computer that much. Even though I'm on it all the time like everybody else because you have no choice. But I don't, am I uncomfortable with the computer world? I guess I am. If I could do it, would I do it the old way completely? Sure, but that's gone.
That's gone.
So is it an easy transition? No, it's just a transition. It's like, it's like if your house gets wiped out by the hurricane, you build a new one. It's going to be a little different.
Yeah, hopefully a little different.
Yeah, it'll be different. So.
What percentage of your business would you say comes from the shop, from your catalog, from internet, from book fairs? Do you have any kind of sense of where it's coming from?
I'd say most of my business comes with my other colleagues. Sometimes them purchasing from me, sometimes them selling or we're buying books together. Small percentage from the internet. Book fairs account for a substantial percentage. My catalogs have been declining, but still substantial. Internet is relatively small, but it's great advertising. For me, that's how I look at it. It's been wonderful advertising.
You not only do you do antiquarian book fairs from the ABAA, but I know you do local book fairs, regional book fairs. Do you still do that with the same fervor that you once did?
I haven't done one of those fairs since last Sunday in Vermont.
Well, that's quite a...
I did the Burlington, Vermont Book Fair, and then I did the little fair here. That's the Shadow Fair.
The so-called West Side.
So this past week, I've done 3 book fairs.
Wow.
I can't say they're all worth it, but it's what you do, and something good happens. Sometimes cumulative.
How many book fairs a year do you participate in, either as a seller or a buyer?
I probably exhibited 15 to 18. Probably at the height, I went to 21 or 22, but probably more like 15 now.
And do you find that it's still a source of sales and a source of buying?
Yeah, but less and less.
Less and less?
Yeah, no question.
And this is because of the internet, do you think?
I think so. I mean, these smaller book fairs, well, it's the internet and its demographics.
What do you mean by demographics?
I mean, the death notices, you know, the
Oh, okay.
dealer passes on, there's nobody
Yeah.
taking their space either in the trade or at the book fair.
So
it's
do
gone.
you see this as a viable vehicle for young people who are interested in books, or do you think that time has passed?
Past.
It is.
I mean, not that there won't be room for some, certainly, but it's not going to be the trade we once knew. It's much reduced and specialized, and it will probably, if I had to make a bet, survive as part of something else.
Part of something else.
Well, in the sense of people will deal maybe in antiques and stamps and coins and books.
And books.
You know, I just think it's there's declining interest in, with the exception of coins, which have been very strong. You talk to antique dealers; they're not experiencing anything much different than we are.
Mm.
And so I tend to think that there'll probably be people who will combine those things. I don't know, but
It certainly
logical.
is a thought.
Yeah.
How do you respond to the statement that anybody can go into the book business nowadays just by going on the internet and learning from there?
Yeah. I used to say that all you needed was a business card to become a bookseller, and the learning curve was a little different. I think the problem with the internet doing it that way, there is some truth in that, but you pick up as much bad as you do good. And you need guides to doing it the right way.
And those guides would be?
Both other booksellers, collectors, reading about it. But I had very good advice from someone when I started out, from Larry Moskowitz, as a matter of fact. He said, you learn from your customers.
Oh, yeah.
But I will tell you that nowadays, I can think of very few customers I learn anything from. We've all advanced well past the expertise of our customers. And that's not good because if we want to sell something, we have to be salesmen.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Instead of them knowing what they want and coming to you and saying, it's great, you have that book, I've been looking for that. And you got to explain to them, say, no, you want this book because. It's a different relationship.
I remember once going to a meeting, and you spoke at that meeting, and I think that the topic was you don't have to have a license.
I did a series of articles. You don't need a license to be a bookseller.
Talk a little bit about
that. It was
those.
the first magazine. It was Accumulation. Taylor Bowie helped me get started on it. It was accumulation of stupid things we got in catalogs or stupid anecdotes of people being idiotic. I stopped doing it because once the internet came along, there's too much of it. It's just sickening now. It's like it's not funny anymore. There's just so much of it.
It's a tsunami of bad stuff.
Yeah, it's like the norm is the misdescribed book, and the misspelling, and the stupidity is so pervasive that it's not humorous. It was an exception before, and that's what made it funny. And now it's not funny. And those articles were composed of things, sometimes funny things done by very, very good booksellers.
Oh, yeah. I remember the.
That's right. Just we all make terrible blunders, and it's great to lampoon them. I was also careful not to put people's names in.
Well, that's probably a good idea. Talk a little bit about your specialization in detective fiction and Sherlock Holmes.
Well, that's what I started. I still do a lot with Sherlock Holmes and some with detective fiction, but once again, that's changed. It was much more interesting before. And people, once again, their interests are much narrower. They're not interested in the historically important but more obscure books in the field as they once were. People want what they read, they want what they've grown up with, and it's like in a lot of fields, the sort of the antiquarian aspect of it has become less important. Makes it less interesting for me.
It does.
I don't want to deal in the very modern, current stuff. I have nothing against it, reading it, but it's just that as books, they don't interest me at all.
No, I feel the same way as you do about that.
Pretty typical.
In the total structure of of our society and our book business. If you were to have like a crystal ball in front of you, can you look into it and see where we might be 30, 40, 50 years from now? Will there be a trade? Will it be anything like we know now?
It will be nothing like we know now. But we have lived, not only in our trade, but in a lot of things, in a little window of time. The book trade as we know it probably didn't exist much earlier than the mid-19th century, sort of as we understand the book trade. And even then, it wasn't too strong. The book trade as we know it really has been the last 100 years.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just a little window of time. I mean, in the ages that have gone by in civilization, we've just lived in this little section of it. So I think it'll be gone, just like a lot of other things are gone, you know. I mean, that might have existed in the Middle Ages, or you know, I mean,
nobody makes spears for a living.
Yeah, I mean, you know, nobody's making, you know, stove blackener, you know, whatever. You know, it's like there was a time that was a valuable thing, and now it isn't. I think that's our position. It's not that it won't exist; there'll be some market for it, but.
What do you think of the great challenges that we face as booksellers today, looking to the future? There obviously are challenges. What do you think some of them might be?
Defending ourselves against the hordes of vandals.
The hordes of vandals?
Of vandals. I mean, essentially, the Internet allows anybody to say anything they want.
Correct.
And somebody goes on the Internet. You've been in the business since the 1950s. And someone goes on the Internet, and the person looking for a book doesn't know the difference between you or me or the person who just put the book up and has been in business for 10 days. Who probably stole the description from you or from me.
Yeah, obviously.
And how do you defend yourself against that? I don't know. It's right. It's impossible.
That's certainly a great challenge.
And I think that's our greatest challenge, I think, that there's no way for us to essentially, we debate it, essentially there's no way for us to differentiate ourselves.
How do you respond to the statement that when I first came in the trade, they said to me, "Oh, you should have been here 15 years ago when there were books. Now there's nothing left."
That's very interesting, actually, and I've given a lot of thought to that. And I've thought, once again, we kind of lived through a golden age of books that we didn't appreciate when we were going through it. And also, but the other thing is that what it means, and I have to catch myself because sometimes I deal with those dealers who are younger than me, which aren't a lot of them, and they have a different take on some books. And I look at some books sometimes, and I price them very reasonably because I say, well, I've had lots of copies of that book. Well, you know, if I think about it, I haven't had lots of copies in the last 20 years.
Right.
And they look at it and they say, no, they've never seen a copy of that book. And they're right. It's hard once you've been at it a long time. Your experience sometimes tricks you.
Yeah, it could be your worst enemy. It could be your best friend.
The other thing that tricks you. The other thing very interesting about the Internet, which I wouldn't say I find valuable, but remarkably interesting, is you will pick up a book at a book fair or someplace, or you go out scouting, and you'll say, "This is wonderful. I've never seen a copy of this." And you know the truth is you never have. You go home and look up at the Internet, and there's 25 copies.
At far less than what you just paid for the one you got.
It's very interesting, but in truth, I think our memory it can be faulty, but generally it's just. Maybe it's just the way we look at books. Sometimes you just don't see them, but there they are. So that's one. I would call that's a good educational aspect of the.
Helen Younger made the statement that she thought because of the Internet that inexpensive books became even less expensive, and scarcer books became even more expensive. Once the Internet.
True. I mean, the whole bottom end of the book market is finished.
You think it's totally finished?
Take a look at it. If you want to sell books that used to be able to sell for say 10 or 15, not us, but maybe other members of our colleagues, 10 or 15 or $20. Now they go on the Internet. There's people have them for $1 and $2. And the truth is, so far as bookshops being open, people go to the bookshop, they see the book. Very often they know they could just go home, order it for with postage for $6. They'll have it in 4 days. That's it. Why should they buy the copy for $15 from Doug Harding at the Brattle Bookshop, or people who run good, solid book operations? So that's dropped the market out of those books, I think. But it also has affected the higher end to some extent because, once again, what I said, also people don't know the quality they're getting, so they can say, if somebody really doesn't know what they're doing, they say, oh, this is fine in Jacket. Now, maybe X library, but it's still competing in the market for your copy that is truly a beautiful one. It's competing with it, even unfairly and falsely, but it is.
Getting back to book fairs for just a minute, in your participation, are you mainly there for your presence? Are you there to raise the flag? Are you there to buy? Are you there to sell? Or all of the above?
With some very few exceptions, I'm not there for the food.
Well, that goes without
I'd say
saying.
all those reasons are good ones. I guess foremost, I'd say I'm there to buy. That's what I'm most interested in doing when I get there at 6 in the morning at some of these small book fairs. I want to buy because that's all you're going to do at 6 in the morning.
Right.
And then it's nice if you sell something. That's good. And it's nice to meet people, but I'm not really crazy about people. I've been with them.
You never were.
It's never done me much good. So, but it's all those reasons. Raise a flag, hand out some catalogs. You never know. Sometimes you get a call a month later on something. So all those reasons. I think I've always thought of book fairs as a cumulative effect. The fact that one fair is terrible and seemed useless at the time doesn't mean it was.
Yeah. There are effects that happen many days or weeks or months after a book fair that can change your attitude about what you just experienced.
Sometimes you just don't know.
You just don't know. Yeah. Currently, how much of a staff do you employ in your open shop?
Well, I have Brian, who's sort of my real employee, and my oldest son works for me because I'd probably have to support him anyway. So
yeah, you might as well get him.
So I may as well get some work out of him.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it, really. My wife does the bookkeeping, and I.
And if you do decide to close your shop and go back to an office, etc., will you maintain the staff that you have, or
Probably.
and you'll continue to run your business just the way you have, but you'll just do it in a different venue?
I think I'll get rid of all the cheaper books.
And
I don't think I'll have a choice. It's not.
Yeah.
Not that I don't want to have them. I love having those books because it's when I go to those book fairs and things. I want to buy. We all go out. We want to buy books. That's what we want to do.
Yeah,
we even
that's
want to
our
buy the
life.
wrong ones.
Yeah.
And but I'm going to have to. I mean, just the cost of housing those books is just too much now.
Just too much. Peter, it's been great
Okay.
talking to you. Thanks
Thank you.
very much.
Oh.
Enjoy the interview, and keep thinking positive.
Nah.